So like I said, today we'll be looking at the advanced costing feature in Business Central. Let's just quickly have a look at what this feature actually gives us. So advanced costing functionality actually helps you calculate the true cost of an item. So Business Central does help you calculate the true cost, but Business Central works on the principle of historical costing. So what happens is once you actually pay a certain amount, you raise the invoice in Business Central and you actually post the invoice, but you actually need the invoice and you need the invoice to be posted in Business Central, especially when it comes to landed costs and things. So what sometimes happens is companies will only get invoices at month end for things like shipping and insurance and a couple of other things like that. Or a lot of the invoices will always come after the fact. So once the goods have actually arrived, they will only after they've received those invoices post the figures in Business Central. So only at a later stage do you get true costs of items. And when there's certain things that happen, for instance, when you have bulk discounts that you get based on the volume that you've sold in a certain quarter, in a certain month, or in a certain year, those types of costs you cannot bring into consideration until you've actually received that discount. And then you need to go back and then adjust those figures after the fact. So what advanced costing allows us to do is it allows us to bring all of those different types of costs and reductions and expenses, etc., into consideration at an earlier time. So what you can do is you can set up all of those additional costs either per item or item category. Sometimes companies will give you discount based on item categories. They'll say sell more than 1,000 items out of a specific category. Like for instance, chairs. If you sell more than 1,000 chairs, it doesn't matter which chair it is, as long as you sold more than 1,000 of them, we'll give you an additional, say for instance, 5% rebate on those items. So in that instance, you would need to set that type of discount on a specific category as such. You can also calculate the true costs of items based on any additional shipping, customs clearance, volume discounts, etc. And you can do those calculations before you actually start buying the items, which gives you more accurate margins. So if you've got a better indication of what your costs are actually going to be, it'll give you much better margins at the time of actually making the sale, giving the salesperson a better idea of what type of margins he's actually selling the items at. That type of thing can also, of course, drive profitability, because if you know that the cost is actually going to be higher than what the system might be showing at the moment, you can make sure that you increase the prices enough. This system will also give you a real-time view of the margins that you're going to be getting. So without further ado, let's jump into an actual demo and go and show you guys what we can actually do with this advanced costing. So in Business Central, if you go into the empowered modules over there, and of course the empowered module, if you go into the module configuration over there, this module that I'm looking at is the wholesale and distribution module. And if you have a look over there, you'll see that the advanced costing I've actually already activated in there. You would, of course, need to go into edit and activate the advanced costing over there if you want the advanced costing feature to be activated in the system. What you can now do is, it's literally just a question of going to empowered, going to the module configuration over there. Going to empowered, going to advanced costing, and then going to the advanced cost list, and then setting up the costs per item over there. To set up a new one, you would just click on the new button over there, give this advanced cost a specific code, and then give it a description over there. Say this is test number 2. At the moment, the status of this item is in draft. You would need to set up a cost base over there. So in other words, where do I go and fetch the cost of a specific item? Now, there are 3 places you can go. It's the current purchase price, the last purchase price, and the unit cost. So if we have a look at a specific inventory item in Business Central, there's a couple of fields on the actual item card that can give us the cost of an item. If we go onto the item card, we go into the costing tab over there. The first field I want to show you is your unit cost. So the unit cost over there will give you what your average cost for a specific item is. The only time the unit cost will always give you a unit cost, irrespective of what item you're actually looking at. Even if you had set up standard costing on a specific item, the unit cost over there will still go and calculate an average cost. Whether you're using FIFO or LIFO costing, the unit cost field over there will always give you what the average cost of that item is at a given point in time. So that's one of the fields we can actually go to. If we go to that unit cost field over there, that field over there will show us what the unit cost is of that item at the moment. Then there's another field that we can look at. I've just got to click on show more over there to actually show it. There's a field over there called last direct cost. Okay, so the last direct cost is the last price I paid when I purchased this item. So it works like this. I create a purchase order. I purchased the item, say, for 784.60. And when I post that purchase order, that field is filled in as this was the last price you paid for this item. If I now buy this item again and I buy it for 785, then this field will be replaced by 785 as the last direct cost. In other words, the last price I paid is this price over there. Now, for the lack of a better price to use, so if I don't have specific purchase prices set up for this item, so if I go over there to purchase prices and discounts, and there we go to purchase prices. So if I have a specific agreement with a specific vendor to buy this item at a specific price, I will set up a price over here in the purchase prices. So when I create a purchase order and there's no purchase price filled in the system, then of course what the system will do is it will go and use the last direct cost to copy that value into a purchase order. Okay, so I've shown you 3 places where I can get actual costs. I've shown you the unit cost over there, I've shown you the last direct cost, and I've shown you the actual purchase price over there. So if we go back to our costing over there, the cost base over there, I have to pick one of these. Current purchase price. So in other words, this will look at my purchase prices. So there where I set up my price per vendor specifically. If I have a price list set up in the system, it will take the price from there. The last purchase price will be the last direct cost field. Okay, so it goes to the inventory item, fetches the price off of the last direct cost, and that's the price that it will then use. And then the last one is the unit cost field. So that will be that average cost field that I showed you over there, which is called unit cost on the actual item card. So where do I want to go and fetch the actual cost of a specific item? And you'd have to choose one of these. Let's say, for instance, we decide we want to choose the last direct cost over there. Then under the calculation method over there, I've got to choose either a net or a gross method over there. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a table later on. It's just how the extra costs then get added onto the specific item. If I choose either net or either gross, this will determine how the values get added on. So I'll show you at an example those methods a little bit later on. Then the average purchase quantity over there. On average, when I'm going to calculate this specific cost, what do I want as the average purchase quantity over there? And if you on average usually purchase 100 items at a time, then change that actual price over there to 100. But a lot of the times when you do these calculations, you'll actually just put the average purchase quantity there at 1. Then I've got to choose over here. Do I want an item, a specific item number? So am I going to do the cost just for a specific item? Am I going to do the cost for an item category, a landed cost category, or a specific vendor number? And there's a priority associated to these fields on how these fields actually get applied. Because obviously, if I go and pick that I want to do the cost for a specific item over there, I would go and set up the cost for that item down in my lines over there, and then they would only apply to that specific item. However, if I leave the item blank, I can go and say that I want these costs to apply to a specific item category code over there, for instance. So if I choose an item category, then whatever costs I add at the bottom over there will always apply to that entire item category over there. I can choose a landed cost category code over there. You can see I haven't got any set up in the system at the moment, or a specific vendor number. So what you can do over here is you can, for instance, come in here and I can go and say, okay, that Athens desk over there, And you can say that I've got a specific supplement or a reduction that I would like to add onto this specific item. So let's say, for instance, I've got a reduction that I want to add because if I buy more than a certain amount, I get a specific discount. So then I'll choose a reduction line, or I'll choose a supplement line. Like, for instance, let's say, for instance, there is shipping charges that needs to be added, and it's an amount of $100. Or a multiplier or a percentage, etc. And they might apply only from a specific date until a specific date. And then what is the item charge number that I'm actually going to be using for this? And then, for instance, over there, you'll choose shipping, freight, or whatever the field is that you're going to use. Once you have actually got all of this set up over here, you will then go to your actual status and change it from a draft. Now, I haven't actually got everything set up over here properly with the costings, but I am going to be able to just show you guys exactly what this does in a demo just now. So what then happens is, if I've chosen a specific item over there, I've said go and get the last purchase price and then use the gross method, and I add a bunch of supplemental costs over there, like, for instance, shipping charges and insurance for freight and a whole bunch of extra charges over there. The system will then go and calculate the cost of that one item. And then if I go into an inventory item over here, and I then go to that specific inventory item, all that this is going to do is it's going to show me my landed cost over there. There's a new field added on the item card, and it will then show me my landed cost over here. So the advanced costing feature in Business Central doesn't actually affect the standard costing mechanisms. It just calculates a new landed cost for you. Because if I were to purchase this item now and I didn't have the freight costs or anything like that, the average cost calculation over here will only calculate the cost without that freight, etc. But this would give me a more accurate indication of what my actual cost of this item then is. Same thing on a sales order. So if I were to go into a sales order or a sales invoice or whatever, and I then went to go and sell a specific item, then on any line that I actually add over there, so if you have a look down here and you have a look at this line over there, and I'm selling a specific item, you can see over there on the top line, I'm selling a Paris guest chair. Then right at the end over there, you will see what is your landed cost and what is your actual margin that you are making on that specific line based on the landed cost calculation that I've actually added to Business Central. Now, what you can do with these costs is when you actually set them up over here. So if I go to my advanced cost over there and look at the advanced cost list, I can create one line over there. And in this one line, I can go and say, okay, let's go and set up the average cost for a specific item over there. So let's pick a specific item. Let's pick a different item. Sorry, because my first demo I did probably already had that one in it. So you can see that the item category now gets grayed out. So this cost will only apply to that item. And I can then go and start adding my additional costs. And then what I could, for instance, do is I can go and create another advanced cost and apply it to a specific item category code. And I can say all items in this category attract an additional import cost, for instance, and then apply an additional import cost to all items in a specific category. So you can actually get fairly specific in terms of how you actually want to set this up and apply different costs across different categories. Now, there is actually a video available on YouTube where we've actually put an entire demo together over here. And I just want to sort of jump in here to a certain point in time. Sorry, guys, I was notified a little bit late of this demo, so I didn't have a full demo set up over here. Let me just skip these ads over here. So let me first show you over here how the gross method and the net method actually goes to calculate this. So let's say, for instance, I had a specific cost base set up and I had a unit price of 10 euros and an average purchase quantity of 1,000. So that brings my total gross cost to 10,000. So in other words, what I'm saying is the unit price is 10 euros per unit. I'm buying 1,000, and then I add a supplemental transport cost where I go and say add 10% onto that first line, which is going to add an additional 1,000 euros onto it, bringing my subtotal to 11,000 euros over there. Then I say I also want to add a supplemental line. Now remember, on the lines I add one of two things. I either add it's this way. I either add a supplemental or a reduction line. Supplemental increases it, reduction reduces it. So I add another supplemental line for insurance that I paid at 2%, which adds 200 euros. Then I add another supplemental line over there, for instance, for order processing costs, which is a fixed cost of 60 euros. Then when I add that up over there, so I now take the 11,000 plus the 200 plus 60, I get to a total cost of 11,260 euros up to that point in time. So if I now take this total cost divided by the 1,000 average purchase quantity that I've got over there, I get to a landed cost per unit of 11.26. Now, if we take the same example that I've got over here, and we have a look at, if we did the same thing with the net method, I have the item of 1,000, gives me this supplemental cost of 1,000, gives me the additional 1,000, gives me a total of 11,000 over there. I then add my insurance, but instead of adding the insurance over here on the gross method, adding it on the net method will now take 2% of this cost over here. So 2% of 11,000 gives me 220. See over there, I've got a difference between these two of 20 euros already over there. So what that's going to do is that's now going to say, okay, now all I do is I add my supplemental processing cost of 60 euros, giving me a total of 11,280 over there. Okay, so you'll see the total comes to 11,280, giving me a landed cost per unit of 11,280 instead of 11,260. Because if I divide that 11,280 by 1,000, I now get 11,28 per unit instead of 11,26. So the gross and the net method means that the gross method always goes back, and any percentages that I add is added to the actual gross cost of the items. But the net method actually takes the net cost. So as the costs are rolling up, it will keep adding those costs, increasing the actual cost by a little bit more. So, and that depends on the types of taxes usually that you pay, and also, on what figures those values are usually calculated. So here's the hierarchy I was telling you guys about. So on the actual item, sorry, I'm going the wrong way again. So on the actual item charge that on the advanced cost document over there, I can add it by item category, by landed cost category, and by vendor. So here you will see the actual hierarchy of those items. The item only will be added first, then the item and vendor, then the item category only, and then the item category and vendor. So that will determine how these different advanced cost documents will be added together to give me the total cost for a specific item. Oh yeah, and then vendor only is the lowest level that you'll actually get over there. So over here, here's just another example quickly of the net and the gross method where we apply a reduction. So what happens over here is we have the same scenario where we have a cost base of 10 euros across 1,000 items, giving me a total of 10,000. And I get that landed cost of 11.26 as we calculated it earlier. But then what I do is I add a second layer. In other words, what I do in Business Central is I go and create a second advanced cost document, and I apply a 5% discount across 10,000 items. So the supplier says to me, if you buy 10,000 items in the next 3 months, or if you buy 10,000 items in the next 1 year, I will give you a 5% discount. Now, I'm fairly confident that I will actually be buying that volume. So I want to apply that volume already at an earlier stage so that I get an actual reduction at an earlier stage in my cost. So what I do is I create a second layer. I create a reduction line where I already apply that volume discount, and I go and tell the system, listen here, I know that the cost is 1126 as we've calculated at the moment, but add that additional purchase quantity. So at an average purchase quantity of 10,000, apply a reduction of 5%, giving me a total of 107,600 that I would pay, giving me an average landed cost per unit of 1076. Okay, and the system will then show that 1076 already when I start selling at the beginning of the quarter or at the beginning of the year, letting my salespeople know this is the type of sort of price that you can be looking at for this item. Even though the system shows a higher price, work on this as the actual price that we will be dealing with. And then applying that same thing with the net method over there. So with the net method, you would get a cost of 1128 over there. And then the net discount that you will get over there will be a little bit higher because the discount will be calculated on the 112,000 instead of 112,800 instead of 112,600, giving me a little bit of a higher discount and giving me a little bit lower landed cost per item over there. Okay, so that is how Business Central will actually go about calculating these costs.